Okay, this is the Zoom recorded lecture for week one for OT 300. The week one lecture, the very first lecture. Okay, these are the lecture questions that we're going to have each week. And on the following week, when you come in, there's going to be a quiz on these lecture questions. Along with the anatomy, there's anatomy listed. If you look into Canvas, it'll say quiz answers week to week, and I'll give you the whole schedule of the quizzes. And I'll give you literally the answers for the anatomy that you need to memorize. So when you come in next week, there'll be a quiz on the anatomy of the scapula, as well as there may be some questions I may choose randomly from these 7 questions. You won't get all 7, but you'll get 1 or 2 of the 7. And we'll break down each one of these questions in class in this lecture today. And then at the end of the lecture, I'm going to go back and I'll make sure they're all answered. So you want to get the answers to these 7 questions because, again, they're going to be 1 of them or 2 of them maybe on next week's quiz. Okay, so we talk about what this class is about, kind of what we need to kind of do and kind of move towards this class. It's all about analyzing kind of movement and kind of connecting that to function. And it really dovetails your anatomy class with Ben, all the cadaver anatomy stuff that you're getting crammed into your brain, all that stuff to memorize. It's not just memorizing anatomy, but kind of thinking about how people use this anatomy as they move and do tasks. And then we kind of want to look at that whole integrated chain or system of movement and find where the problem is. So if it's this girl running, and she loves to run, and let's say this whole chain of movement, if you look at her ankle, her knee, her hips, her trunk, even her arms, everything, let's say it's her knee is the problem. So that's kind of what we're focusing on, so she can get back to doing what she wants to do as an OT. So you're really going to get more and more skilled at analyzing how people move and analyzing the joints, kinesiology, and especially the anatomy this semester involved in movement. In class, we're going to actually do this, but if you look at this person bowling, let's say he loves to bowl, and he comes to you with issues. He says, I can't bowl anymore, there's too much pain. And you watch him do the movements and you kind of break it down and you find out that the issue is his shoulder. He can't bring his shoulder back the way he used to because of pain and that glenohumeral joint. So the anatomy, the joint, maybe some muscles, that's where you would focus your therapy to get him bowling again. So we're going to talk about anatomy this semester, this class, and especially in Ben's class, how to measure it through goniometry and manual muscle testing, and then kind of getting more towards this. I don't expect you to be any kind of expert by the end of the semester, just kind of moving towards analyzing movement as as people move, and becoming more and more of an expert on breaking down people's movement and where the kind of the problem is that you need to address as a therapist. Sit to stand, to somebody standing up, is a big part of therapy. A lot of older folks in the rehab settings you're going to be going to are challenged by that. And your job as the therapist is, okay, why can't they sit up? What's the problem? Is it their quads are too weak? Is it their gastrocs back here when they're doing plantar flexion? With their ankles? Is it lack of hip range of motion? Are they unable to bring their trunk kind of forward? And then it's issues around her arms with the extension, that sort of thing, his arms. So you have to kind of analyze it and again see where the issue is. All right, so this is kind of the part 1 of the class, moving towards that midterm, understanding the movement components, really understanding the anatomy, some basic kinesiology, and then how to measure it. When you get into those practicums and the labs, we're getting into measuring at first through manual muscle testing, and then goniometry, and then kind of doing movement analysis. Okay, and then kind of looking at the bigger picture of how this class is taught. It's really based on they call brain-based learning or experiential learning, and the gist of that is just hands-on. People learn best by doing. You don't really learn as well by just listening or just reading. But you learn by doing in any way you can interact with the material is a good thing with your brain. It helps you really retain it. It means you stick more when you're thinking about studying and making the most out of your time, and everybody has limited time. These kinds of things will get the biggest bang for your buck study-wise. Moving and doing, we'll do a lot of that in this class. We're going to be doing these student-led demonstrations. We have to kind of demonstrate the anatomy. I'll talk more about that in a minute. Drawing and writing, any kind of drawing you can do is good. If people draw out anatomy, is good. Writing, rewriting your notes is good. Forced recall, what that basically means is quizzing. Quizzing yourself. We're going to do weekly quizzes. Learning from peers, making it relevant, making mistakes, articulating your answers, trying to answer things, voice them, kind of building what you already know. And you guys already know a lot from your A&P classes. These are kind of 7 tips. These are what students that are really successful do. And you're going to hear this a lot, but it's a big bump up this semester. For some of you, it's a pretty significant bump up in terms of how much we're expecting for you to do and learn and study. It's a lot bigger commitment than you probably had in this, at least in Hassan, the first 2 years through the program. So be ready for that. The things that you used in the past to be successful may not work. You may need to put more time and effort into it. What do successful students do? They take notes. They rewrite their notes. They make connections to the material any way they can. Ask questions. Students that are successful are always asking questions, trying to articulate that answer, drawing it out, building anatomy. In the proximity class, they have to actually build a hand. Quizzing yourself, that's that forced recall. Constantly quizzing. We'll do quizzes in this class. And mostly make the commitment. And we have a lot of things pulling at you between work, definitely other classes, and social media and social kind of stuff. But really, this is your priority. It's just 14 weeks. This is what you want to do, and it's definitely worth doing. It's a great profession, and make that commitment. Okay, the syllabus and assignments. Those who are just listening, you really want to go through that syllabus and come to me any questions you have on dates and assignments and that sort of thing. Okay, so what we're going to get into today, study of movement. I think I'm going to end this. I'll probably do this in a second.